My fingers hover above the keyboard, sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows that overlook Austin's skyline. The contract draft on my screen worth 6 figures waits for my final revisions. I've built this life word by word, client by client, far from the ruins of what I once called family. My phone buzzes against the glass desk. Mom's name flashes on the screen for the first time in 12 years. My chest tightens as if steel bands are constricting around my lungs. The familiar anxiety, never quite extinguished, flares to life. I watch the phone vibrate, memories flooding back with each buzz. I press the silence button and return to my work. Some calls don't deserve answers. 12 years earlier, I push open our front door, backpack slung over one shoulder, to the sound of shouting. My steps falter in the hallway. She attacked me. Jake's voice cracks with what sounds like pain. Look what she did. I round the corner into the living room. Jake cradles his bruised hand against his chest, tears streaming down his face. Mom and Dad hover over him, their backs to me. What's going on? The words stick in my throat. They turn, and Mom's face contorts with disgust. What kind of monster attacks her own brother? I didn't touch him, I say, but the defense sounds hollow, even to me. This scene has played out too many times before Jake's accusations, their immediate belief. Dad straightens to his full height, looking down at me with cold eyes I barely recognize. You have 1 hour to pack, then you're gone. Dad, please, don't. His voice slices through the air. You crossed the line, Ava. We can't have this violence in our home. I didn't do anything. My voice rises, desperation clawing at my throat. Jake is lying. Again. Mom steps between us. We saw his hand. The hole in the wall. Don't make this worse by lying. I glance at Jake, still hunched on the couch. When our eyes meet, I catch at the flash of satisfaction that crosses his face when no one else is looking. The calculated triumph. The truth hits me with stunning clarity. I was never going to win this, not against the golden child, not against their willful blindness. 1 hour, Dad repeats, checking his watch. Not a minute more. Rain pounds against grandmother's door at midnight. I stand on her porch, soaked to the bone, a single suitcase clutched in my trembling hand. Water drips from my hair, mingling with tears I've fought to contain for hours. The door swings open. Grandmother's small frame fills the entrance, her eyes widening at the sight of me. Ava? She pulls me inside without hesitation. What happened? They kicked me out. The words burn my throat. Jake told them I attacked him, punched a hole in the wall. She helps me out of my wet jacket, her movements efficient but gentle. He lied again, didn't he? I nod, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. The crushing weight of injustice presses down on my chest until I can barely breathe. Grandmother's knowing eyes hold mine. She doesn't ask for details or evidence. She doesn't question my version. She simply believes me. She disappears into her bedroom and returns moments later, pressing something into my palm. I look down to see 2 crisp $100 bills. This is all I can do for now, she whispers. Use it wisely. I curl up on her couch later that night, staring at the ceiling, a silent vow forming in my heart. I'll never need them again. The next morning, I fill out 3 job applications before noon. My hand shakes as I sign my name, the reality of my situation settling onto my shoulders like a physical weight. That night, I cry myself to sleep, the question haunting me, did I deserve this somehow? The following day, I buy a small notebook with part of grandmother's money. I begin writing my story, the truth no one wanted to hear. The words flow from me, raw and unfiltered. Grandmother finds me on the 3rd day, hunched over the notebook at her kitchen table. Your words will be your salvation someday, she says, squeezing my shoulder. Keep writing, Ava. The truth has power, even when no one's ready to hear it. I look up at her, the only ally I have left in this world. I will. What would you do if your entire family turned against you because of one calculated lie? For me, this betrayal wasn't the end of my story. It was only the beginning of my rise. But when those who abandoned me come crawling back, how far would you go to make them face the truth? My eyelids feel like sandpaper as I shuffle through the diner's back door at midnight. The smell of grease and coffee clings to my hair, a badge of my 8-hour shift. 2 textbooks and a crumpled scholarship application wait in my backpack, silent judges of the study time I'm about to lose to sleep. See you tomorrow, Ava. Marco, the night cook, waves as I punch out. I manage a nod, already calculating the 5 hours until my alarm will drag me to my morning retail job. My uniform shirt, the second of three, I'll wear toe-to digs into my armpits, still damp with sweat from rushing between tables. The bus ride home is a blur of streetlights and half-formed dreams. I jolt awake at my stop, heart racing with the momentary panic of almost missing it. Grandmother's house is dark, except for the porch light she always leaves burning for me. In my tiny room, I spread the scholarship application on my desk and uncap my pen. The essay prompt swims before my eyes. Describe a challenge you've overcome and how it shaped your educational goals. I laugh a sharp, bitter sound in the quiet room. Where to begin? My pen hovers over the page. This is attempt 17. The previous 16 versions lie in a folder beside me, each one too angry, too desperate, or too revealing. I need this money, but I need my dignity more. I write until the numbers on my alarm clock blur. When my head finally drops onto my textbook, the pen still clutched in my hand, I dream of blank walls without accusers. The rejection letter sits on my desk, its crisp edges mocking my frayed nerves. While your application showed promise, I don't read the rest. Instead, I reach for 5 more applications I printed at the library yesterday. Each one represents another chance, another door that might open. I place my hand on my collarbone, breathing deeply before beginning again. The custodial job at the community center pays less than the diner, but lets me work after classes. I push mops across floors while other students attend parties. I memorize marketing theories while scrubbing toilets, reciting definitions under my breath like prayers. You're the hardest worker I've ever seen, my supervisor tells me, signing my overtime sheet without question. What he doesn't understand is that hard work isn't a choice for me, it's survival. College orientation buzzes with excited chatter and parental advice. I stand alone, clutching my campus map, watching families take photos and share proud embraces. My stomach knots when a father adjusts his daughter's hair before snapping a picture. First generation? A girl with bright blue hair appears beside me, her smile kind. I nod, not correcting her assumption. It's simpler than explaining that my family exists, but chose not to be here. Me too, she extends her hand. I'm Tara. Want to tackle registration together? That afternoon, I scanned the course catalog for practical classes business writing. Marketing analytics, but a creative writing elective catches my eye. An indulgence? A voice in my head warns. You can't afford indulgences. I register for it anyway. This is what raw talent looks like. Professor Martinez holds up my essay, her voice filling the classroom. Heat crawls up my neck as 24 pairs of eyes turn toward me. Ava has captured the essence of displacement without melodrama or self-pity. I stare at my notebook, unsure how to process praise for words born from pain. The essay, a thinly veiled account of standing alone at a bus stop with one suitcase, wasn't meant to impress anyone. It was just the truth. Later, the professor catches me after class. You should submit this to the college magazine. They pay contributors, she adds when I hesitate, correctly reading the calculation in my eyes. Not much, but it's a start. 3 weeks later, I hold a check for $25 in a magazine, with my name in print. I trace the letters, something unfamiliar expanding in my chest. Not pride, yet something more tentative. Possibility? My dorm room closet becomes my first office. A desk lamp clamped to the shelf illuminates the wall where I've pinned freelance listings. Red circles mark completed jobs website copy for a local bakery, product descriptions for an Etsy shop, blog posts about topics I research at midnight. My spreadsheet tracks my growing rates: $50, then $100, finally $500 per article as my portfolio expands. Each cell represents another step away from dependence, another break in the wall between my past and future. The day I calculate that my writing income exceeds my weekend job's paycheck, I allow myself a single celebratory coffee before returning to work. Freedom has a price, and I'm still paying installments. On graduation day, I scan the audience out of habit, though I know what I'll find. 3 seats in the front row hold my entire support system grandmother, her silver hair catching the sun, Tara with her now purple hair, and Professor Martinez, who became my mentor and first professional reference. No parents, no Jake. The absence should hurt, but instead, it clarifies. I built this without them. I will build everything else the same way. That night, checking my email at grandmother's kitchen table, I find a message from a tech startup. Your portfolio impressed us. Can you handle 10 articles a month? The guaranteed $3,000 monthly income feels like solid ground beneath my feet after years of shifting sand. 3 months later, I sign a lease on my own apartment, small but mine, with a desk position to catch the morning light. This course costs more than your rent, grandmother points out when I show her the brand strategy workshop registration. It's an investment. I place my hand on my collarbone, a gesture she recognizes. She studies my face, then nods. Your words are your capital. Invest wisely. The course connects me to clients beyond content writing, brands needing coherent marketing strategies, companies seeking distinctive voices. I send 50 cold emails to companies I admire. 5 respond. One becomes my first corporate client, offering a $5,000 contract that I reviewed 3 times before believing the number. The first year I clear 6 figures, I celebrate alone in my apartment with a bottle of champagne I've been saving. I pour a glass and stand at my window, watching Austin's lights flicker on as evening falls. Each one represents another person, another story. Mine is just beginning. My name glows on the last page of the contract, black ink against crisp white paper, binding me to a household name in tech. I trace my finger over the zeros in the payments section. $25,000 for a 3-month campaign. More money than I made my entire first year after being kicked out. We'll need your signature on page 12 as well, Miss Mitchell. The company's legal representative slides another document across the glass conference table. His Rolex catches the light as he moves. I sign without hesitation. My hand doesn't shake anymore when faced with opportunities that once would have overwhelmed me. Excellent. The marketing director, Elise, clasps her hands together. And you've prepared the content strategy presentation? I nod, connecting my laptop to the projector. The boardroom falls silent as executives in tailored suits lean forward. My heart pounds as the first slide appears, but my voice remains steady. This is my territory now. 20 minutes later, after detailing conversion metrics and engagement strategies, I click to my final slide. Elise stands before I can conclude. The content strategy is exceptional, she says, but we'd like to propose an addition. I tense, bracing for criticism. We want you to be the face of this campaign, not just the writer. The room tilts slightly. I don't understand. Your journey is compelling self-made success, authenticity in a world of corporate speak. Elise gestures as if framing me for a photograph. Our audience responds to real stories. Yours is perfect. I leave the meeting with my mind spinning. My words have always been my shield, safely distanced from my identity. Now they want me actual me front and center. We need authentic voices like yours, says the email invitation to speak at the West Coast Tech Conference. My cursor hovers over the delete button, but I click accept instead. 3 weeks later, I stand backstage, counting breaths. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 7, exhale for 8. The technique keeps my anxiety at bay as the previous speaker wraps up. Next up, discussing brand authenticity in the digital age, please welcome Ava Mitchell. The spotlights blind me as I walk onto the stage. 500 faces stare back, industry leaders, innovators, and influencers. My prepared notes suddenly seem inadequate. I set them aside. My journey to this stage began the night I was kicked out of my home at 17. I say, my voice softer than intended. The audience leans forward collectively, straining to hear. A calculated lie destroyed my family relationships, but it also forced me to find my voice. The words flow after that. I speak about resilience, about riding my way out of poverty, about building a business from nothing. The audience nods, some wiping away tears. Authenticity isn't something you can fake, I conclude. It's what remains when everything else is stripped away. The applause thunders through the convention center. What I don't realize as I bow slightly and exit the stage is that conference cameras have broadcast my speech to millions online. Authenticity, it turns out, is also marketable. My phone won't stop buzzing. Notifications flood the screen as I try to order coffee, the next morning meals from industry leaders seeking collaboration, messages from social media platforms about verification requests, texts from former clients congratulating me. Your usual? Asked the barista. I nod, scrolling through the chaos. 3 magazine editors want to profile my journey. A publishing house is interested in a potential memoir. A television producer asks if I'd consider a guest spot on their entrepreneurship show. Then I see Ito text message that stops me cold. Ava, we need to talk. It's been too long, darling mom. 12 years of silence, and now she needs to talk. The timing is hardly coincidental. I pocket my phone without responding and take my coffee to a corner table, needing to process this unexpected blast from the past. By evening, I've made a decision. I text back with a time and place at a coffee shop downtown, neutral territory. Better to face this head on than wonder what they want. The coffee shop door chimes as they enter. They look older, dad's hair now completely gray, mom's face lined in ways I don't remember. But their demeanor remains unchanged, that particular blend of entitlement and judgment that defined my childhood. I remain seated as they approach, forcing them to come to me. Ava. Mom's eyes well with tears that I suspect are practiced. We've missed you so much, darling. Dad settles into the chair across from me, his expression solemn. You look well. Success suits you. Thank you, I reply, keeping my voice neutral. How did you find me? Your speech, Mom says, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. It was all over our social feeds. You've always had such a way with words. Dad clears his throat. Families should stick together no matter what. It's been too long and life is short. We should put the past behind us. His words sound rehearsed, as if he practiced them in the car on the way over. I take a sip of my coffee, noting how neither of them has actually apologized. How's Jake? I ask. The silence that follows is thick and awkward. Mom fidgets with her wedding ring while Dad suddenly becomes interested in the menu board. He's doing fine, Mom finally says. I wait, but no further details are offered. Interesting. After several minutes of strained small talk about the weather and my apartment neighborhood, Dad leans forward. We're so proud of what you've accomplished, Ava. And it seems like you're doing quite well for yourself. I know where this is heading. What do you want, Dad? Mom interjects quickly. We've hit a bit of a rough patch. Your father's retirement fund took a hit with the market downturn, and I've had some medical issues. Nothing serious, Dad adds, but the bills have been substantial. He reaches into his briefcase and slides a document across the table. I glance down at itemized costs for house renovations, totaling $50,000. We're a family, Dad says, his tone suggesting this explains everything. Family helps each other, right? When I don't immediately respond, his expression hardens. A flash of familiar anger crosses his face, the same look he gave me the night he ordered me to leave. I have a question, I say, my voice surprisingly calm. Did you ever believe me about what really happened with Jake? Mom shifts uncomfortably in her seat, avoiding my eyes. Dad waves his hand dismissively. The past is the past. Jake was a kid. We all make mistakes. In that moment, everything becomes crystal clear. Nothing has changed. 12 years, and they still choose Jake. They still believe his lies. They still see me as nothing more than a resource to be used. I stand up, gathering my things. I have one condition. I'll help you under one condition. My voice remains steady as I deliver these words, despite the hurricane of emotions swirling inside my chest. The afternoon sun filters through the cafe windows, casting my parents in a harsh light that reveals every line etched into their faces by time and choices. Name it, my father says, relief washing over his features. He reaches for his wallet, as if preparing to write down payment terms. I fold my hands on the table. I want a family gathering. Everyone, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone. My mother's smile flickers, uncertainty creeping in. A reunion? After all this time? Not a reunion. I meet her eyes. A confession. The word hangs between us like a dropped bomb. My father's hand freezes mid-reach. I want you both to admit what really happened. Tell everyone how you chose to believe Jake without evidence. And Jake, I take a deliberate breath, needs to confess that he lied about me attacking him. My mother's face drains of color. My father's knuckles whiten as he grips the edge of the table. You can't be serious. His laugh is incredulous, brittlest than ice. Completely serious. My mother leans forward, her voice dropping to an urgent whisper. We can't humiliate Jake like that. His reputation. What about my reputation? The question slices through her plea. The one he destroyed? The one you helped him destroy? Their silence confirms what I've always known. My father attempts to negotiate. We could say it was a misunderstanding, that we all misinterpreted. The truth or nothing, I interrupt. Your choice. They exchange glances loaded with 12 years of protected lies. My father nods almost imperceptibly, and they both stand. We need to discuss this. I watch through the window as they huddle outside the cafe, heads bent together in furious whispers. My father gestures sharply. My mother dabs at her eyes. The familiar choreography of their joint manipulation. When my mother returns alone, fresh tears streak her makeup. Jake has a good job now. This would ruin him. He lives with you still, doesn't he? I ask, though I already know the answer from their financial documents. She nods, eyes avoiding mine. He's saving for his own place. At 33, my father returns, sliding into his chair with the imperious air that once terrified me. You need to let this go if you want to be part of this family. The ultimatum meant to wound, to control washes over me without leaving a mark. I already have a family, I reply calmly. People who actually care about me. I gather my belongings and stand, leaving my coffee half finished. When you're ready to tell the truth, you have my number. I walk out, back straight, eyes forward. The weight I expected to feel guilt, regret, longing is mysteriously absent. Instead, a lightness fills my chest as I breathe in the spring air. In my car, I dial my grandmother. They chose him. Again, I tell her when she answers. They always will. Her voice carries the wisdom of years watching this pattern unfold. That's why you needed to leave. I drive home to my apartment, the evening sunlight gilding the city skyline. The peace I feel isn't what I expected. For years, I imagined confronting them would reopen old wounds. Instead, it's confirmed that the distance between us is necessarily a protective boundary rather than a punishment. At midnight, my phone lights up with a text. Jake. Still playing the victim? Pathetic. I watch the ellipsis bubble as he types more. Don't think you can turn the family against me. They'll never believe you over me. The final text contains a photo. Jake with our parents, arms slung around each other's shoulders, smiling widely. Taken today, after our meeting. A visual reminder of their allegiance. But what Jake doesn't realize is that he's just made a critical mistake. In trying to hurt me, he's given me exactly what I need. His next text confirms it. Everyone knows you're lying about what happened. I never touched that wall. You're the one who went crazy. I screenshot everything immediately, my fingers working with methodical precision. Each message, each damning word saved. Evidence secured. Jake has finally admitted to the lie in writing, not directly, but clear enough for what I need. The mistake he doesn't realize he's made sends a rush of vindication through my veins. The next morning, I arrange the screenshots in chronological order, creating a document that tells a story 12 years in the making. I forward everything to Melissa, a lawyer I've befriended through networking events. Can we meet? Today, if possible. 3 hours later, we sit across from each other at a quiet corner table in a downtown café, the one where I confronted my parents. That place feels tainted now. Do I have grounds for defamation? I ask, sliding my phone across the table. Melissa scrolls through the screenshots, her professional demeanor briefly cracking as she reads Jake's words. This is remarkably explicit. She looks up, lawyer mode fully engaged. Potentially actionable. The statute of limitations is tricky since the original incident happened when you were minors, but these new messages restart the clock. The photo with your parents after the meeting adds context that strengthens your case. Her fingers tap thoughtfully against the tabletop. We could file suit, claim emotional distress, demand financial compensation for reputational damage. She studies my face. Is that what you want, though? Legal action? I consider her question as I stir my latte, watching the swirls of cream dissolve into the coffee. The path before me branches in two directions. Pursue them legally, drag everything into public record, force them to defend their lies under oath, or find another way. I don't want their money, I finally say, the realization crystallizing as I speak it aloud. I want the truth exposed. I want them to face what they did not in a courtroom, but in the court of our family, our community. Truth over compensation, Melissa nods. That's actually rare in my line of work. Truth is the only currency they've never offered, I say. It's the one thing they can't buy their way out of. She slides the phone back across the table. Then you have options beyond litigation. A carefully crafted email to family members with these screenshots attached. A request for statements from those who witnessed Jake's pattern of behavior. Documentation from your grandmother about what she observed. As she speaks, a strategy forms in my mind, clear, precise, and devastating in its simplicity. This isn't about revenge, I say, the conviction in my voice surprising even me. This is about finally being heard, about making sure no one else gets treated the way I was. Just remember, Melissa warns, even justified actions have consequences. Are you prepared for the fallout? I think about the 12 years I've lived without them, the strength I've built, the life I've created. They already took everything they could from me. All that's left is the truth, and that was never theirs to keep. I look down at Jake's messages again. 12 years of lies condensed into careless confessions. The ammunition is now in my hands, not for destruction, but for liberation. The question is no longer what will I do with it, but when. Evidence spreads across my desk like a battlefield map. Old diary pages yellowed and worn bear witness to Jake's patterns in my careful teenage handwriting. Screenshots of texts glow on my tablet screen, his words illuminated in digital permanence. A voice recording sits ready on my phone. Grandmother's steady voice recounting what she saw the day Jake claimed I attacked him. And finally, the photos I'd forgotten. I had snapshots of an undamaged wall taken hours after Jake claimed I punched through it. 12 years of silence ends tonight. My fingers hover over the keyboard, not unlike they did when Mom's call interrupted my workday last week. But this time, I'm not the one being interrupted. I'm the one taking control. The email is already drafted, waiting. I read it over one more time. To my extended family. I haven't shared my side of the story until now. Here's why I disappeared 12 years ago. I'm not seeking money or sympathy. I don't ask for your judgment. I only want the truth known. Attached, you'll find documentation that speaks for itself. Ava, simple, factual, devoid of accusations or emotional pleas. Just the truth organized chronologically in a neat PDF attachment. I click send before I can reconsider. The whoosh of the outgoing message sounds like freedom. Within an hour, my inbox starts to fill. I always suspected something wasn't right. Aunt Sarah's message arrives first, her words confirming what I'd sometimes wondered had others seen through Jake's act. Uncle Mark's message hits harder. Jake tried to blame our son for stealing money last Christmas. We didn't believe him, but we never connected the dots to what happened with you. The most painful response comes from Cousin Rachel. He told everyone you had mental problems. I'm so sorry we believed him. I should have reached out sooner. My phone starts ringing, names I haven't seen in years flashing on the screen. I let most go to voicemail, needing time to process this flood of long overdue support. When my phone vibrates with Jake's name, my chest tightens. I answer on speaker, setting it on my desk while I continue organizing responses. What the hell do you think you're doing? His voice sounds different, pitched higher, with a tremor I've never heard before. Sharing my side of the story, I reply, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. You can't do this. People are calling me, asking questions. That must be uncomfortable for you. His breathing turns ragged. It was just teenage stuff. Why are you doing this now? It was 12 years ago. I say nothing, letting the silence stretch between us. Fine, I hit the wall myself, but you weren't innocent, he suddenly blurts, then immediately curses under his breath. I end the call and save the recording. My phone continues buzzing with notifications. A group text from my parents to relatives appears. Ava is manipulating everyone for money. She approached us recently asking for help with her failing business. A bold lie. Evidence of more manipulation. Within minutes, family members flood the thread with screenshots of my success, links to my speaking engagements, and copies of my evidence. Mom's tearful voicemail comes next. Why are you destroying this family after everything we've done for you? I deleted halfway through. Dad's email arrives with clinical precision. We'll never forgive you for this public humiliation. Some things should remain private, Ava. When I call grandmother to update her, she sighs deeply. They're afraid of losing face with the country club crowd. Your parents care more about appearances than truth. Always have. I know, I say, surprised by the absence of pain in my chest. I'm meeting with my attorney tomorrow. The meeting with my attorney is brief and productive. She drafts a cease and desist letter while I watch, her fingers flying across the keyboard with practiced efficiency. Any further contact or defamatory statements will result in legal action, she reads back to me. We'll deliver copies to your parents' home and Jake's workplace. Is this excessive? I ask, watching her print the documents. She looks up, her expression serious. Boundaries require enforcement, Ava, especially with people who've shown they don't respect them. 3 days later, silence descends a different kind than the 12-year absence that preceded this confrontation. This silence feels lighter, cleaner. The absence of toxic voices creates space for others. When Aunt Julia's email arrives with a Thanksgiving invitation, I read it twice to make sure I understand. We should have reached out years ago. We were wrong. The family would love to have you join us, your parents, and Jake won't be there. It's time we got to know the real you. I accept without hesitation. Standing in Julia's dining room 2 weeks later, surrounded by relatives who now know the truth, I feel a strange new sensation belonging without fear. When they gather for a family photo, the first in 12 years without my parents or Jake, I don't hesitate to step into frame. As the camera flashes, capturing this new beginning, I realize that family isn't defined by blood, but by those who stand by the truth. I chose integrity over manipulation and discovered a support system I never knew existed. My parents and Jake have faded into silence, but I face my future unburdened by their toxicity. Sometimes the family you choose is more powerful than the one you're born into. Would you have had the courage to do what I did? Your words matter, I tell the small crowd gathered at New Horizons Youth Shelter. My voice carries across the room where 30 teenagers sit, some leaning forward, others with arms crossed defensively. I recognize the posture, the armor I once wore daily. When someone takes away your voice, writing gives it back to you. A girl in the back row catches my eye. Thin frame, wary expression, notebook clutched against her chest like a shield. I was her once. 2 years ago, I was just another content writer. Today, I'm launching Write Your Way Out, a mentorship and scholarship program for young writers who've been displaced or abandoned. I explain how each accepted student will receive professional guidance, publishing opportunities, and a percentage of my income allocated to fund their education. The words flow easily now, practiced from months of planning. Sometimes the people who should love you the most are the ones who hurt you the deepest, I say, watching recognition flash across their faces. But that doesn't have to be the end of your story. After the presentation, the girl from the back approaches, knuckles white around her notebook. Can I really make it like you did? Her voice barely rises above a whisper. I meet her eyes directly. Yes, and I'll help you. Laughter fills my apartment as Sophie raises her champagne glass. Sunlight streams through the windows, catching on the cityscape of Austin stretched out 30 floors below. My 30th birthday feels nothing like I imagined in those dark days on grandmother's couch. To Ava, Sophie announces, who survived what was meant to break her. 12 people surround my dining table, friends who appeared in my life when I needed them most. My agent, 2 college roommates, writers I mentored who became colleagues, a neighbor who brought soup when I was sick and stayed to become family. In the place of honor sits grandmother, her frame smaller than I remember from childhood, but her eyes still sharp. The oxygen tank beside her chair is new. The proud smile is not. As everyone clinks glasses, I notice what doesn't hurt anymore: the absence of my parents and Jake. That space has filled with something better. I never dreamed you'd build all this, grandmother says later, her hand trembling slightly as she gestures around the room. I squeeze her fingers gently. You gave me the foundation. The letter arrives on cream stationery, postmarked from London. Dear Ava, I've just returned after 5 years abroad. My son James showed me everything, your emails, the evidence, all of it. I should have contacted you sooner. I suspected Jake's nature for years. The way your parents enabled him, they couldn't face the truth. It was too painful to admit they'd created the monster themselves. If you're willing, I'd like to meet when I visit Austin next month. Your aunt? Eleanor. I fold the letter carefully, sliding it back into its envelope. The rage that once would have ignited at any mention of my family has cooled to something resembling understanding. Not forgiveness. I don't owe them that, but recognition of the broken systems that created all of us. I don't need their acknowledgement anymore. The doctors say 6 months. Grandmother whispers, her bedroom at the assisted living facility bathed in afternoon light. Maybe less. I sit beside her, our hands intertwined on the quilt she made decades ago. You did what I never could, she says. You broke the cycle. From beneath her pillow, she pulls out a leather-bound book. I've kept this since the night you arrived at my door. Every step, every triumph. I open to the first page, see her neat handwriting documenting the night everything changed. Ava arrived tonight, soaked through, one suitcase. They've thrown her away, but they don't know what they've lost. This is your story, she says. Use it to help others see their own strength. The memoir takes shape on the same kitchen table where I once filled out job applications with shaking hands. Words flow from my fingers, 12 years of distance giving clarity to the pain. When I reach the dedication page, I don't hesitate. For my grandmother, who believed me. The publisher calls with the offer 6 figures for my story, the amount my parents once needed from me. The irony isn't lost on me. I send the advance copy to their address, not for reconciliation but acknowledgement. The return receipt comes back with my mother's signature, proof it was received, even if never read. Waves crash below the cliffside riding retreat in Santorini. My laptop open, I check my email one last time before disconnecting for the day. Miss Mitchell, I got accepted to college. Full scholarship. You were right about everything. Thank you for believing me. Mia. I smile, tucking my hair behind my ear as I close the email. The final page of grandmother's journal sits beside me, finally read after her funeral last month. She will thrive without them. I close the journal and open a new document. It's time to write the next chapter.
I sit at my parents' polished oak dining table, running my finger along a familiar scratch near the edge mark from when Jessica knocked over Dad's antique globe stand during a tantrum when she was 9. No one mentioned it then. Some mistakes in our family are forgiven without a word. Others never seem to fade. The afternoon sun filters through Mom's pristine lace curtains, casting honeycomb patterns across framed family photos, lining the walls of this Midwestern shrine to manufactured happiness. Every image carefully curated: Jessica's dance recitals, Mom and Dad's 30th anniversary cruise, my college graduation where they stood just far enough away that my size wouldn't dominate the frame. Jessica's perfectly manicured hands flutter as she recounts the proposal story for the 3rd time today. Her diamond catches the light, sending prisms dancing across the white tablecloth. And then Brad got down on one knee right there at Brookside Gardens. Her voice rises with practiced excitement. Everyone was watching, and this photographer just happened to be there and caught the whole thing. Serendipity, Mom sighs, clasping her hands beneath her chin. Just like a movie. I force my lips into what I hope resembles a smile. The scent of Mom's apple pie wafts from the kitchen, cinnamon and nostalgia mingling into something that once meant comfort but now feels like a noose tightening around my throat. Dad emerges from the kitchen carrying a bottle of champagne, his face flushed with pride. His calls for a proper celebration, my baby girl, getting married. He pours golden liquid into flutes that Mom reserves for special occasions that typically revolve around Jessica's accomplishments. I've never warranted the good crystal. To Jessica and Brad, Dad raises his glass. To a beautiful wedding and a beautiful life. We clink glasses. I take a small sip, the bubbles bitter on my tongue. Jessica turns to me, her smile sharp as a paper cut. So, Amanda, what do you think about being my maid of honor? Something warm unfurls in my chest, a dangerous feeling called hope. After all these years, could this be an olive branch? A chance to repair what broke between us somewhere between childhood and now? I'd be honored, I say. Meaning it despite everything. Jessica nods, satisfied, then tilts her head. Her eyes narrow slightly as she examines me over the rim of her champagne flute. But why are you still fat? You need to look presentable at my wedding. The room goes silent. My champagne glass freezes halfway to my lips. I mean, you'll be in all the photos, Mom adds, as if this clarifies everything, as if this makes what Jessica said perfectly reasonable. Dad nods, his expression a mixture of concern and disappointment. The photographer Jessica wants books up a year in advance. That gives you plenty of time to, you know. He gestures vaguely at all of me. The casual cruelty delivered between sips of celebration champagne is so familiar I almost laugh. Almost. Instead, I'm 12 again, walking into the kitchen after school with tear-stained cheeks because Melissa Harper called me hippo hips during gym class. Jessica sitting at the same table with her friends, giggling behind their hands when I entered. "Mom, the girls at school were making fun of me again," I had said, my voice small. Mom barely looked up from cutting vegetables. "They're just being kids, Amanda. Maybe if you tried a little harder with your appearance." Jessica smirked at her friends, secure in her position as the pretty one, the thin one, the right one. I'm 17, graduating with honors while Jessica, a sophomore, rolled her eyes during my valedictorian speech. Later at dinner, Mom fussed over how the graduation gown did nothing for my figure while Dad asked why I couldn't tone down the academic talk during my address. I'm 22, showing them my acceptance letter to Boston University's MBA program. "Boston's so far," Mom had said, frowning. "And city living is so expensive. Wouldn't it make more sense to stay closer to home? You could lose some weight, meet someone nice." Every month since, phone calls peppered with health concerns and just worried about you, and Jessica's friend is a dietitian if you want her number. The distance between Jessica and me grew wider, as she became the perfect daughter who fulfilled their every expectation, beautiful, socially adept, engaged to a man from the right kind of family. I take a slow sip of water, my champagne abandoned. Something shifts inside me, a tectonic plate finally giving way after years of pressure. I straighten my shoulders slightly, just enough that I feel a change in my spine. "Congratulations again, Jessica," I say with a polite smile that never reaches my eyes. "I'm sure it will be a beautiful wedding." I glance at my watch. 14 months until the wedding. 14 months to decide who I want to be when I return to this table. The wedding invitation clings to my refrigerator door, secured by a magnet from a Chinese restaurant that closed 3 years ago. Cream-colored cardstock with gold embossing Jessica's impeccable taste on display. I stare at it every morning while my coffee brews, the cursive letters blurring as tears well in my eyes. 14 months. The countdown ticks in my head like a time bomb. I wipe away the tears with the back of my hand, surprising myself when frustration replaces the familiar sadness. The coffee machine gurgles its final protest, and I pour the dark liquid into my mug. World's best dog, Mom. Even though my apartment doesn't allow pets. A gag gift from Sarah at the office Christmas party. Something snaps inside me as I take the first bitter sip. Not dramatically, not with thunder or revelation, but with the quiet certainty of a rubber band stretched too far for too long. "Enough," I whisper to my empty kitchen. The neighborhood gym sits 3 blocks from my apartment. I've passed it hundreds of times, averting my eyes from the wall of windows showcasing fit bodies in motion. Today I force myself to look as I push open the heavy glass door. The chemical smell of disinfectant mingles with sweat and determination. "First time?" asks the woman at the front desk, her smile practiced but not unkind. I nod, clutching my newly purchased water bottle like a shield. "Mike's got an opening for an assessment in 15 minutes if you're interested." She gestures toward a broad-shouldered man adjusting weights on a machine across the room. "Army vet. Best trainer we've got." Mike doesn't look like what I expected. No flashy clothes or perfect hair. Just a middle-aged man with salt and pepper stubble and eyes that assess without judging. "So what brings you here today?" he asks after introductions, his clipboard raised. I open my mouth to mention Jessica's wedding, but something stops me. "I'm tired of feeling like a stranger in my own body," I say instead, surprising myself with the truth. He nods, making a single note. "That's the only reason that sticks. Let's get started." The assessment is humiliating, a catalog of everything I can't do. Muscles I didn't know existed scream in protest. My face burns red with exertion after just 5 minutes on the treadmill. I can't hold a plank for more than 10 seconds. Mike doesn't comfort me with platitudes or false encouragement. He simply records data, occasionally correcting my form with firm hands that never linger. When we finish, he studies his clipboard while I gulp water, my legs trembling. Tuesdays, Thursdays, 6 a.m., he says finally. And one weekend session. You'll hate me for the first month. The second too. I already hate everyone, I mutter, not meaning for him to hear. He barks a laugh. Good. Channel that. The first workout is worse than the assessment. I leave the gym convinced I'm dying, muscles screaming with each step. The second is marginally better only because I know what torture to expect. By the third week, doubt has become my constant companion. I can't do this, I gasp during a particularly brutal set of kettlebell swings. Sweat drips from my hairline, stinging my eyes. My shoulders burn like they're being torn from their sockets. 4 more, Mike says, unmoved by my distress. I said I can't. You said you were tired of being a stranger in your body. His voice drops, gentler but somehow more insistent. This is how you introduce yourself. I finish the set, then collapse onto the mat, lungs heaving. This isn't about them anymore, is it? Mike asks, handing me a towel. The question catches me off guard. Who? Whoever you were trying to prove something to when you walked in that first day. I don't answer, but the question follows me home. Whispers to me as I ease my aching body into an Epsom salt bath. Echoes as I carefully measure portions for meal prep Sunday with recipes from the nutritionist Mike recommended. During our 8th week, something shifts. I'm struggling through a final set of push-ups, modified but still brutal, when Mike says, 2 more. Do them for Jessica. I freeze, arms shaking in the half-plank position. What did you say? The wedding. Isn't that why you're here? For Jessica's wedding? I lower myself to the floor, then push back up with a strength that surprises us both. I'm not doing this for Jessica. Another push-up, cleaner than any I've done before. Or my parents. One more for good measure, rage fueling my muscles. I'm doing this for me. Mike's smile is brief but genuine. Finally, Sarah from accounting becomes my walking partner after she comments on my consistent morning arrival time. I'm trying to build better habits, she says, falling into step beside me one morning. Mind if I join your routine? We start walking 3 lunch breaks a week, then add Saturday mornings in the park near my apartment. She doesn't ask about my weight loss, focuses instead on her divorce proceedings and her son's baseball games. I find myself looking forward to our conversations, the easy friendship that forms without expectation or judgment. The weekend cooking group comes next to 8 strangers in a community center kitchen, learning to make meals that nourish rather than simply fill. I discover I love the texture of properly cooked vegetables, the complexity of spices that aren't buried under cheese or sauce. I learn to taste my food again. The journal begins as a food log but evolves into something more profound. I record feelings alongside facts, track patterns in my emotional eating, document small victories that have nothing to do with the scale sleeping through the night, climbing 3 flights of stairs without pausing, saying no to a project that would have overwhelmed me. Dr. Levine, the therapist I finally call after 3 months of workouts, helps me see the connections between my body and the family wounds I've carried since childhood. Your transformation is physical, she says during our 2nd session, but your healing must be emotional. 6 months in, I catch a glimpse of myself in the gym mirror and don't immediately look away. My posture has changed, shoulders back, chin lifted. I'm smaller, yes, but also somehow more substantial. For the first time, I see my mother's cheekbones emerging, my father's strong jawline no longer hidden. I look like myself, only more so. When I finish my first 5K, Mike waiting at the finish line with an embarrassingly large sign. I feel something I haven't experienced in years spread that has nothing to do with other people's approval. The promotion at work comes as a surprise, though Sarah insists I've earned it. You speak up in meetings now, she points out over celebratory coffee. People listen when you talk. My new wardrobe comes piece by piece, clothes that fit properly. Colors I've always loved, but thought too bold. I donate bags of shapeless black garments, keeping one oversized sweater as a reminder. The final change happens on impulse. Sitting in the salon chair, I hear myself say, I want to go blonde, not platinum, something warm. Honey blonde. Are you sure? The stylist fingers my dark waves. It's a big change. I meet my own eyes in the mirror. I'm sure. 3 hours later, I hardly recognize myself, but for the first time, I feel fully seen. The blonde has always been Jessica's thing, her crown and glory. Now it frames my face like sunshine, bringing warmth to my green eyes that I never noticed before. 8 months before Jessica's wedding, I stand in my bathroom, wrapped in a towel after my shower. The mirror, once an enemy, now reflects a woman I'm still getting to know. My body bears the marks of my journalose skin at my abdomen. Stretch marks silvering my thighs, muscles defining my arms. Hello, I whisper to my reflection, the greeting of old friends who have much to discuss. I've been looking for you. I adjust the rearview mirror of my rental car one final time, catching my reflection. The honey blonde hair still startles me after 32 years of brunette. I smooth the collar of my fitted blue dress a shade that makes my green eyes pop and draw in a breath that fills my lungs completely. 14 months of change sit in this car with me, invisible companions for the return home. The house looks exactly the same red brick colonial with white trim, Martha Stewart-worthy flower beds lining the curved walkway. Mom's prized hydrangeas nod their heavy blue heads in the spring breeze. Everything perfectly maintained, just like the family image. I grip the small overnight bag in my right hand, knuckles whitening. One more deep breath. In through the nose, out through the mouth, just like Dr. Levine taught me. The dashboard clock reads 4:58 p.m. I'm exactly 2 minutes early for family dinner and wedding planning discussions. My heels click against the concrete path, each step deliberate. The sound feels different now, confident, purposeful. The doorbell chime echoes inside, followed by Mom's distant, "Come in." I turn the brass knob and step inside. They're already gathered in the living room, Dad in his leather recliner with reading glasses perched on his nose, Mom and Jessica on the sofa, surrounded by bridal magazines. 3 heads turn toward me in unison. Mom's coffee cup freezes halfway to her lips. Dark liquid sloshes over the rim, staining the pristine cream-colored sofa, but she doesn't notice. Jessica's mouth falls open, lipstick perfect, but eyes widening in unmistakable shock. Dad removes his reading glasses slowly, as if they're somehow distorting his vision. 14 months of transformation stand in their entryway, and for once the Jenkins family has nothing to say. Hi everyone. My voice sounds different in this house, clearer, steadier. Sorry if I'm a little... Mom recovers first, setting down her cup with a clatter. Amanda? Is that? You look so... different. Jessica finishes, her eyes scanning me from head to toe. You look like a completely different person, Dad says, rising from his chair. I hardly recognize my own daughter. The silence stretches between us like taffy, sweet on the surface, but with a tension that threatens to snap. I step further into the room, placing my bag beside the entry table. You've lost so much weight. Mom finally manages, her voice a mixture of awe and something else, something that prickles the back of my neck. About 80 pounds, I answer matter-of-factly. I've been working her in Boston. 80 pounds? Jessica echoes, her voice higher than usual. That's incredible. Dad circles me like I'm a sculpture in a museum. You must have been working out like crazy. You look great, kiddo. Thank you. I accept their stunned compliments with a small smile, watching their faces carefully. The initial shock is shifting into something else. Mom's eyes narrow slightly. I hope you didn't overdo it. Crash diets can be so dangerous. No crash diet, I assure her. Just consistent work with my trainer Mike, better nutrition and time. Jessica stands, smoothing her cream-colored dress. Did you get surgery or something? No way you look this good naturally. There it is, the first undermining jab. The familiar sting feels distant now, like watching someone else get pinched. Just hard work, I repeat, meeting her gaze directly. Well, sit down, Mom says, patting the sofa. I made your favorite chicken casserole. Though I suppose you don't eat them. I eat everything in moderation now, I say, taking a seat across from them rather than squeezing between them sofa as expected. The blonde is different, Mom adds, tilting her head, lips pursed. It doesn't really suit you. Jessica's the blonde in the family. My sister touches her own platinum locks protectively, as if I'd somehow stolen them from her head. Your mother's right, Dad chimes in, nodding decisively. You've always been the brunette, Amanda. You should stick to what suits you. I feel my smile stiffen but keep it in place. I wanted to change. But blonde isn't really you, Jessica insists, her voice sharpening. And with the wedding photos, wouldn't it be better if you went back to your natural color? Her eyes narrow slightly. Seriously, did you get surgery? There's no way you look this good naturally. You must have done something else. No surgery, I say, meeting her gaze directly. Just 14 months of hard work. Well, Mom interjects, I hope you don't lose any more. You're starting to look gaunt in the face. Dad nods in agreement. Don't overdo it. No one likes a woman who's too obsessed with her appearance. The irony of his statement hangs in the air between us, but only I seem to notice it. I watch their faces carefully, Mom's thinly veiled disapproval, Dad's uncomfortable frown, Jessica's tight smile. The realization washes over me in a wave of clarity. Their reactions have shifted from shock to something more calculated, a collective effort to reclaim control. For 14 months, I've been beyond their reach. For 14 months, I've been making choices without their input or criticism. For 14 months, I've been becoming someone they can't diminish with a casual word over dinner. And it terrifies them. The wedding's still 4 months away, I say evenly. We can discuss hair color later. How are the plans coming along? Jessica launches into details about venue and flowers, but her eyes keep drifting back to me, assessing. Mom refills coffee cups, commenting that I must be hungry after my trip, that I shouldn't get too thin. Dad makes jokes about not recognizing his little girl anymore. Each comment lands like a small stone in a knot, enough to wound but enough to mark territory. Each suggestion about my appearance comes wrapped in concern. Each compliment arrives with a subtle correction attached. I sit back in my chair, watching this familiar dance from a new vantage point. Their reactions are transforming before my eyes, the initial shock giving way to something more calculated. Mom's tight smile, Dad's furrowed brow, Jessica's rapid blinking when she looks at me. I recognize these signs now. They're recalibrating, adjusting to this unexpected shift in our family dynamic. The pattern is so clear now, the way they build walls of expectation, the way they've always moved the finish line whenever I approached it. The way success in their eyes was always conditional, always just beyond reach. This isn't about my weight. It never was. It was about keeping me in a box they understood, a role they'd assigned, a position that made them comfortable. The extra pounds were just convenient ammunition. With that gone, they're scrambling to find new ways to maintain the old hierarchy. I take a sip of water, feeling strangely calm as this truth settles inside me. I watch them exchange glances when they think I'm not looking, silent communications about how to handle this new Amanda who doesn't fit their narrative. Jessica is still talking about bridesmaids' dresses, but her words fade into background noise as I study my family with new eyes. The real question isn't whether I've changed enough. It's whether I'm willing to shrink myself again, not my body this time, but my spirit. Oh, make them feel big. I spear a raspberry with my fork, the tines scraping across fine china with a sound that makes my mother wince. Morning sunlight streams through the breakfast nook windows, illuminating Jessica's wedding planning bandera 3-inch monstrosity, with color-coded tabs and plastic sleeve protectors. The florist says peonies will be out of season. Jessica sighs, flipping to a page littered with post. It notes, but I've dreamed of peonies since I was 16. Whatever you want, sweetheart, Dad says, refilling his coffee. We'll fly them in from South America if necessary. Mom nods, patting Jessica's hand. Your day should be perfect. I take a sip of water, letting the conversation flow around me like a river around a stone. Since my arrival yesterday, the undercurrent of tension has steadily risen. My transformation isn't just physical, it's in how I hold myself, how I speak, without seeking approval in every glance. Jessica hasn't commented directly on my weight loss since her initial shocked greeting, but her eyes keep finding me across the table, narrowing slightly before darting away. Amanda, Mom says suddenly, I've been thinking about the bridesmaids' dresses. What about them? I ask, setting down my water glass. Well, since you're... She gestures vaguely at my body. Different from the other girls, maybe you should wear a slightly different shade. Just so everything photographs well. Different how? I ask, though I know exactly what she means. You know. Jessica jumps in, her voice honeyed with faux concern. You're still bigger than my friends. Navy might be more slimming than the periwinkle I've chosen. And less noticeable, Mom adds helpfully. You wouldn't pull focus in the photos. Dad chuckles. Smart thinking. Amanda always did stand out in group pictures. Something shifts inside men at the slow tectonic movement from 14 months ago, but a clean, decisive break. I set my fork down carefully against the edge of my plate. The small clink seems to echo in the sunny breakfast nook. I look at each of them, really look-taking, in Mom's practiced smile, Dad's dismissive half-attention, Jessica's barely concealed satisfaction at putting me back in my place. No. The word emerges, calm and clear. No what, dear? Mom's smile tightens at the corners. No. I won't wear a different color to be less noticeable at Jessica's wedding. I fold my hands in my lap. No, I won't pretend that asking me to hide is about anything other than your discomfort with me taking up space in this family. Jessica's mouth falls open. Are you serious right now? We're trying to help you. You've been helping me my entire life, I say, the words measured and steady. When I was 12 and came home crying because kids called me names, you told me to try harder with my appearance. When I graduated top of my class, you focused on how my gown looked instead of what I'd achieved. When I got into Boston University, you suggested I stay home, where you could keep monitoring my weight. The stunned silence feels like a physical presence at the table. That's not, Mom begins. It is. I don't raise my voice. Every achievement, every milestone in my life has been secondary to my appearance. Every family photo, every holiday, every celebration has included some comment about my body. Every success has been diminished because of how I look. Dad's face reddens. Now wait just a minute, we've always supported you. You've always tolerated me, I correct him. There's a difference. Jessica's eyes fill with tears, her go-to tactic when confronted. Why are you doing this? Why are you trying to ruin my special time? This isn't about your wedding, Jessica. This is about 32 years of subtle and not so subtle cruelty that I've endured from this family. Family loyalty means something, Dad says sternly, his orthodontist perfect teeth clenched. You don't air dirty laundry like this. That's exactly what I'm talking about, I say. When I speak the truth, I'm being disloyal. When Jessica humiliates me, she's being honest. When Mom suggests I make myself invisible at my sister's wedding, she's being helpful. You're always making everything about yourself, Jessica snaps, mascara smudging beneath her eyes. This is my wedding we're talking about. Mine. I don't match their volume or their anger. Something powerful happens in remaining calm while they spiral. Would you treat a friend the way you've treated me? Would you tell a colleague to make herself less noticeable? Would you point out a neighbor's weight at a celebration? Their silence answers for them. I reach into my purse and pull out an envelope, placing it on the table. This is my gift to you, Jessica. It should cover the cost of the band you wanted, but said was too expensive. She reaches for it, confusion replacing anger. I won't be attending as a bridesmaid. I continue. As a guest. What? Mom's hand flies to her throat. Amanda, you can't mean that. I do. I push back from the table, stand and smooth the fabric of my dress, a simple blue sheath that I would never have worn in my previous life. I wish you a beautiful wedding and a beautiful life. But I won't be there to see it. Jessica stares at the check in her hands, suddenly aware that she's losing both her emotional punching bag and significant financial support in one moment. You can't, we're your family, Mom stammers, tears spilling down her carefully powdered cheeks. Amanda, please, I'm sure we can work this out. Dad says nothing, his expression shifting from anger to something closer to uncomfortable recognition. He sees it now, the truth in my words. The years of casual cruelty laid bare. I walk to the door, each step lighter than the last, leaving behind the weight of their expectations and the prison of their approval. The silence follows me out like a shadow, finally detaching itself from my heels. My hands tremble as I slide the key card into my hotel room door. The light flashes green, and I push through, letting the heavy door slam behind me with a satisfying thud of finality. Inside, I collapse onto the edge of the bed, my breath coming in short gasps, but my mind is crystalline clear. I hadn't planned the confrontation. For 14 months, I'd imagined a dozen scenarios, me standing tall, delivering perfectly crafted lines that would make them see me, truly see me. Instead, the moment arrived organically, born from Jessica's casual cruelty over wedding seating arrangements. "We'll put Amanda at the corner table with the cousins," she'd said, not bothering to lower her voice as I returned from the bathroom. "That way she won't be too visible in the group photos." Something inside me, something that had been building since that first dinner 14 months ago, simply snapped into place. Not with anger or drama, but with a quiet certainty. My phone vibrates against the hotel nightstand the 7th time in 30 minutes. I glance at the screen. 3 missed calls from Mom, 2 from Dad, and 17 unread text messages from Jessica. I pick up the phone and scroll through them without opening. The preview bubbles tell the story. "How dare you embarrass me like?" And "always making everything about your feelings." And "selfish after everything we've." I set the phone down without reading further. The accusations are familiar, I've heard their echoes my entire life. But now they sound different. Like a foreign language I once spoke fluently, but have since forgotten. My voicemail notification chimes. Mom's voice fills the room when I play it. "Amanda Louise, I don't know what got into you today. Your father and I are." Her voice cracks with practiced emotion. "We're very disappointed. To treat your sister this way during her special time is... I raised you better than this." The message ends, and another begins. Mom again, her tone hardened. "The caterer needs final numbers by Tuesday. I expect you'll have come to your senses by then." Another beep, another message. This time it's Dad, his voice low and uncomfortable. "Amanda, call your mother. This is getting out of hand." I delete them all with 3 quick taps. The room's silence envelops me. For the first time in hours, I breathe deeply, filling my lungs completely. I kick off my shoes and lie back against the hotel pillows, staring at the textured ceiling. When my phone rings again, I nearly silence it without looking. But the screen shows Aunt Martha instead of my expected tormentors. "Amanda, are you all right?" Her voice is warm, concerned. "I was there. I saw everything." "I'm okay," I say, surprised to find it's actually true. "I'm at the Marriott." "Good for you," she says, and I hear genuine approval. I've been waiting 30 years for someone in this family to say what needed saying. Martha, Dad's older sister, the family's black sheep for choosing art over marriage, has always been a peripheral figure at family gatherings. I suddenly realize I know almost nothing about her. "They'll never forgive me," I say, not entirely sure if that's a lament or a liberation. "Forgiveness isn't what you need from them, sweetheart." Her voice carries decades of understanding. "What you need is to forgive yourself for believing you deserve their treatment." A weight I didn't know I was carrying lifts from my chest. By Sunday evening, the battlefield has expanded beyond the dining room. Jessica's carefully curated Instagram page features a somber post about family heartbreak and facing adversity before the happiest day of my life. The comment section overflows with sympathy and outrage. On her behalf, distant cousins I haven't seen since childhood send messages asking what's wrong with me. Mom's sister calls to just understand both sides. Dad's golf buddy's wife stops Mom after church to offer condolences as if someone had died. I watch it unfold from the quiet distance of my Boston apartment, where I returned after checking out of the hotel at dawn. I type no responses, offer no defenses. The story they're crafting doesn't require my participation. Only Aunt Martha calls regularly, sharing her own stories of family alienation with dry humor that makes me laugh despite everything. Your grandmother once introduced me as Martha, our daughter who paints instead of parents, she tells me during our third call. At my first gallery opening, "What did you do?" I ask. Introduced her as my mother who criticizes instead of supports. We didn't speak for 2 years after that. She chuckles. Best 2 years of my 30s, frankly. When Jessica's wedding weekend arrives, I'm walking barefoot along the shore of Sanibel Island. The white sand yields beneath my feet as gentle waves lap at my ankles. My phone stays in my beach bag, powered off, nestled beside sunscreen and a dog-eared paperback. 3 pelicans dive into the Gulf waters as the sun begins its descent. The horizon burns orange and pink, colors no designer bridesmaid dress could capture. I breathe in salt air instead of tulle and hairspray, listen to waves instead of organ music. This presence, this gift of peace I've given myself feels weightless, after years of carrying the burden of seeking approval. I walk until sunset fades to twilight, until stars begin puncturing the darkening sky. With each step, the weight lifts further, until I feel almost buoyant. The realization hits me as I turn back toward my rented cottage. I am free. The notifications begin 3 days after the wedding. Former high school classmates and hometown acquaintances reaching out after seeing Jessica's wedding photos plastered across social media. "You weren't at Jessica's wedding? Everything okay?" Then, unexpectedly, private messages that surprise me. "I saw what Jessica posted about you. I remember how she treated you in high school. I should have said something then. And your sister made my life hell junior year. Seeing you stand up to her gives me hope. And I cut contact with my toxic family last year. If you need someone who understands, I'm here." Each message reveals a thread of a tapestry I never knew existed, people who recognize the dynamic I thought was invisible to everyone but me. A community forms in my inbox, built from shared experiences and quiet solidarity. 1 month after Jessica's wedding, I sit at my kitchen table with a cream-colored note card before me. My therapist suggested this step a letter to my parents, not for their benefit, but for mine. "Define your boundaries," Dr. Levine had said, "not as punishment, but as protection." My pen hovers over the paper before finding its purpose. "Dear Mom and Dad, I am well and hope you are too. I've had time to reflect on our family patterns and my place within them. Going forward, I can only participate in relationships that include mutual respect. I lay out clear terms for future contact, no comments about my appearance, no comparisons to Jessica, conversations limited to 20 minutes unless demonstrably pleasant." The final line comes easily. "I'll always love you, but I've learned to love myself too." I address the envelope not to Ohio, but to myself, tucking it into my journal as a contract with the person who matters most to me. That evening, I call Aunt Martha to accept her invitation for Thanksgiving. "I'm making sweet potatoes," I tell her. "Perfect," she says. "I never could stand your mother's recipe anyway." We laugh together, 2 branches of a family tree that grew toward the light instead of remaining in shadow. I stand in the doorway of my Boston apartment kitchen, watching the golden November light spill across faces that have become more familiar to me than those I share DNA with. Aunt Martha's silver-streaked hair catches the light as she leans forward, laughing at something Sarah just said. Mike, who pushed me through those first grueling workouts, gestures expansively while telling a story to Raj from my cooking group. Elena from marketing arranges a final dish on my dining table, the same oak as my parents, but without the weight of disapproval etched into its surface. The scent of sage and rosemary mingles with cinnamon and nutmeg spices I've learned to use fearlessly in the past year. My apple pie cools on the counter, made with my mother's recipe but altered with less sugar. More cinnamon made mine. Need any help? David asks, suddenly beside me. His hand brushes mine, a gentle presence that still surprises me after 3 months of dating. Unlike other men I've known, he never seems to be evaluating whether I'm enough. Just taking it all in, I say, squeezing his fingers. The promotion came in February, senior analytics manager, with a team of my own. I'd rushed to call home before remembering I didn't need to anymore. Instead, I'd called Aunt Martha, who'd whooped so loudly I had to hold the phone away from my ear. You always had it in you, she'd said. You just needed to believe it yourself. My first presentation to the board last spring had gone flawlessly, me voice steady, my data impeccable. No one commented on my appearance. They were too busy implementing my recommendations. The quarterly results spoke for themselves. The weekly calls with Aunt Martha have become my anchor, her artist perspective, helping me see beauty in unexpected places, including myself. Families are like paintings, she told me once. Some need to be restored, others are better appreciated from a distance. My laptop chimes from the living room, probably another email. Last week, it was from Dad. Thinking of you, it had said. The house feels empty this time of year. Not quite an apology, but an acknowledgement of absence. Mom still sends terse updates about relatives and neighbors, carefully avoiding any reference to what happened. Her last message included a link to a diet program, Old Habits Dying Hard, but ended with, "You looked well in your Facebook photo." A grudging olive branch I've chosen to accept with the same measured distance. Jessica's Christmas card arrived early this year. A formal family portrait of Brad, their new golden retriever puppy. Season's greetings, the Matthews family, printed in elegant script. No personal note, just her signature. I've placed it on my bookshelf rather than the trash progress of a sort. Amanda? Elena calls from the dining room. We're ready when you are. I carry the carved turkey to the table, remembering last Thanksgiving's silent meal at my parents' house. The contrast between then and now sends a wave of gratitude through me so powerful I need to steady myself. Before we start, I say, looking at these faces that have become my chosen family, I want to thank you all for being here. Not just today, but throughout this year. Last month, I started volunteering with a youth program for teenagers struggling with body image. Melissa, a 15-year-old with eyes too old for her face, had confided that her mother and sister constantly criticized her weight. Your worth isn't measured by their approval, I'd told her, the words rising from a well of hard-earned wisdom. It's measured by your kindness, your courage, your willingness to stand up for yourself. Seeing recognition dawn in her eyes, I'd glimpsed my own journey reflected back, the painful path that led to this moment. Now I raise my glass to these people who've helped me redefine family. To connections built on respect and acceptance. To new traditions, Aunt Martha adds, her eyes shining with unshed tears. On my coffee table sits a photo album filled with moments from this redemptive year: hiking trips, cooking classes, my first 10K finish line. Beside it stands an empty frame, and not waiting to be filled, but a reminder of what I've left behind and what lies ahead. The conversation flows around me as I touch the door frame, grounding myself in this new reality. I'm Amanda Jenkins, and I finally found my way home.